Hey guys, Aaron asked me to show how I approach the Han Solo track. So let's get right into it. I started with this project with a really filthy bass sound I made like 2 years ago. I actually duplicated it. This one is the first one. It's like the basis for the bass, and it sounds like this. Pretty subtle automation on it, just some filtering automation and some volume changing, low cut. Like really filthy. Then the other sound, which is the same bass sound, only just a little bit tweaked inside of the plugin. I use Massive for this one. And this one is a little more filthier. It fades in. Together with this one, it sounds like this. Very filthy. Then I add another bass sound, which is a pad I made a couple months ago. It really is a simple pad, but it has a lot of movement to it, so it's really nice. And Valhalla Shimmer, love Valhalla Shimmer, adds a great depth to it. So it sounds like this. Really wide. Very powerful tool. Great to make ambient music, but also great to make intros for epic trailers. So you get the idea. Now I just use it for the bass. Very quiet. Here it gets doubled in octaves. Here's another bass sound. This bass sound is Juggernaut. Very cool plugin. Again, another Kontakt library. But yeah, very nice sound. Didn't do much to it. Just some distortion, some EQing. Didn't need the highs. Only a little bit. I think I filtered them. Yes, I did. So it starts off muffled and then continues to have more highs. Also, you're hearing that I have a lot of reverb. Almost every sound in this project is going to descend to this reverb. The reverb itself has pretty long decay. I actually think it's like the standard settings when you load this plugin. It sounds very awesome. Only thing I changed is the color. Here you can see the difference. Clean modulation, noisier, blah blah blah. Check it out, very cool. Valhalla Vintage Verb. Well, then I thought I didn't have enough basses, so I added another bass. Then I added even more bass because I thought it wasn't big enough. So, more bass. It fades in. Really filthy. So that's for the bass. If I play all the bass together, it sounds like this. Alright, that's for the bass. So we'll continue to the brass. I have some brass effects here, so some swells, some crescendos. Nothing fancy here, just some EQing. So this one sounds like this. It fades in and fades out. For this one, it's just a crescendo. And I automated it because the reverb from the brass itself continued way too long. So yeah. Then the main brass. Yeah, just simple fade in. Well, that's the main brass, then some swells at the end. Actually, the main brass is from Native Instruments together with Sound Iron brass ensemble. Very, very nice brass. Like a Hans Zimmer brass. And here's the full orchestrator from Symphobia. Very powerful. So that's for the brass and the little strings. Then we go to, well, let's go to the strings first. These are my strings, just some simple strings. Actually, this one plays the melody, and this one is just some staccato strings that plays the bass. So that sounds like this. Also, not much EQing, just cut the lows a bit, cut the lows, automated the highs. Well, you get the idea, nothing fancy, just some strings. Then we'll continue to the drums, which is the fun part. As you see, I have 4 instances of drums. This is Symphobia drums, this is Symphobia drums. This is Damage from Native Instruments. No, not from Native Instruments, I think. Heavy City, yes. Very cool. Very cool library. Very cool loops, epic loops. So if you have to make epic music and you're on a deadline, that's the way to go. And this is Action Strikes, which is from Native Instruments. What you have to think about if you layer drums, which I do often, Erwin agrees, just think about your EQing properly. So some drums don't need the highs, don't need the lows, because the other drums already fills in the lows. Just really let your ears decide if you need some frequencies or not. Just let your ears decide. Don't cut the lows, because you read on the internet the lows are rumble, etc. Yes, the lows can be rumble, but sometimes you need rumble. Sometimes you need very big lows. Just let your ears decide what you need. Let's hear these drums. In the beginning, not very cool thing, so I'll skip to this part. A little trick I did is this. You'll see my MIDI data is not very tight on the grid, and that's a good thing. Some people tend to quantize everything 100% straight, but give it a little human feel. Imagine if you have like 3 or 10 percussionists in your studio. They won't play the same. They won't play the exact same timing. They won't have the exact same sound. So play around with it. Like for instance here, I made like a flam. And here I just humanized it. Studio One has a great future for this. If you select everything. So for instance, you just played the drums on your keyboard and you quantize it first. And then we humanize it. So Command H and boom, it's humanized. It just shifts the timing a little bit and the velocity. Very cool. Okay. Mixing wise, I didn't do like very much, just some compressor. I also tend to use the solid state logic compressor much. Not for everything. I am not Erwin Stylen that uses it for everything. But for this drums, I used it. Just some subtle compression. Some EQing, didn't need the lows, way too much rumble in it. A little bit EQing to give it some room. Actually used a plate, but it gives a little depth to it. And then some EQ, it was like a tone, so I ringed it out. And some EQing. Yeah, nothing special. Again, some filtering, just automated the highs. Nothing fancy again. Well, here come the effects, the impacts. You'll see I have a lot of Cashmere sounds that actually aren't his sounds. It's just a pack he made together with Splice. So just those are sounds from all packs in the world. He just organized it, and then for me it was pretty fast to work with, so I used them. So some impacts. This is actually a more ambience impact. Very much reverb on it. If I play it like this, it's like sounds like this. But I didn't need the highs. I wanted to be more in depth. So shitload of reverb. That will do. This is also an ambient sound with a little reverb on it because it was way too dominant without it. Or like, yeah, lions. Reverb. Just gives the feeling you're in some kind of environment or something. Works great. Even more impacts. Yes, I also automated the highs. Didn't want it to have many highs in the beginning. Afterwards, it could have the highs he has. Another impact. Cut at the lows. Another impact. Cut at the lows, the highs. I didn't need them. Then some transitions. Nothing fancy, just simple transitions. Some deep impact. Another trick I often do is take a sample. So for instance, if I didn't have this one, take this sample, duplicate it, have it start a little later. So you only have the tail from the impact of whatever sound you use. And then reverse it a little shorter. So yeah, now you have this, more a little bit over it, crossfade. So if I made this a little less loud and fade it in. Works great. Command set, command set, command set. Yeah, okay, we're back. Some orchestral hits. Another orchestral hit. Very cool, this one. This impact, I think, is very loud. Very cool. Yeah. Compressed it to have it a little more punchier than it was. Some EQing. Didn't need the highs, didn't need the very lows. And around 100 it was too loud. Nothing fancy again. Just some impacts. Just choose your impacts and your effects properly. Some impacts are just fucking ugly. Some impacts are just not suitable for the situation, for the track you're in. So just choose it properly. Another impact, only used it once. So yeah, nothing fancy. Let's move on. This one is very nice. There's a lot of reverb on it again. Didn't even do EQing on it. Sounded great with the reverb. That's it. Yeah, and with effects, actually with everything you choose, just choose it properly. When going through your effects, just think like, is this effect suitable for this production? Some effects are great, but just not for the production. It's so logical, but think about it. Don't just drag something in the project you think that sounds cool. Drag something in you think the project needs. Continuing on. This actually is the tail from this one. Cool. Some more effects. This is some phobia effects. Bounced it. Yeah, classic fall synth. Cool. Also cool. Well, another effect. I think I cut the highs and the lows. Yep, I did a little bit. And here is the snare I made like a couple months ago. I made it just with samples, with recordings, and just compressed the shit out of it. And I think I compressed it again. Yeah, I did. It sounds like this. Very cool snare. And of course the stinger in the beginning. So yeah, that are all my plugins. Let's put it all together. Very epic already. So that's it for the instruments. Like I said, mostly I cut the highs if needed and the lows. Send it to a reverb. Just EQ'd it properly. And yeah, nothing fancy. This plugin you need to check out. Supercharger from Native Instruments. Great saturation plugin. Character, which is somewhat like a multi-band compressor. Fat is that it emphasizes the lows and the highs. A warm is more lows than highs, and bright is more highs than lows. And you can choose how wet or dry you want it to be. Very cool. Well, then we'll continue to the fun part, which is the mastering part. Just a compressor, the API 2500 from Waves. Very cool, very nice compressor. A compressor at your master bus is always a good idea, I think. It just tends to glue your mix together, and that's just really, really nice. So, if I turn this off, you see especially the impacts. He compresses them a lot because they're fucking hard here. Swells. Then my favorites, the multi-maximizer from Waves, the L3. It's just a multi-band compressor. If you don't know what a multi-band compressor is, well, the word says it all. It's a multi-band compressor, so every band it compresses differently. So very cool. I actually use a preset for this one. I tend to use often. I changed it to 24 bits because then I have more dynamic range. If you don't know why that is, well, look it up on the internet. So yeah, change the threshold and nothing fancy. Then continuing to my best bud, iZotope 7. First, the imager. I made my lows almost mono, just a little bit stereo information there. Most of the times I make it 100% mono. If something gets played in a big cinema or on a big event with a big PA set, you don't want to be your bass like louder on the left side than the right side. It just needs to be in the middle in your stereo image. Not in every production needs the bass to be mono in the middle, but mostly it does. So this one I made a little bit wider, and the highs very much wider. Gives it a nice stereo image. Continuing on to the equalizer, ringed out some 200. Cutted the lows and the sides. I tend to do that often because I don't want lows in my sides. If I solo them, you'll hear what my sides sound like. Boosted like around 4K. I just thought it needed that a little bit more, so the stereo image was even more beautiful. Then Vintage Tape emphasized the low and the highs, a little bit more harmonics. It's a subtle difference. This is without it. Especially the highs tend to be a little more like smooth, so yeah, very nice. Then a limiter just to make sure I don't clip at my master. You can see it limits a little bit. Well, a little bit, 4 dB, but hey. Especially the peaks are allowed, the rest isn't. Like the very transients you'll see. Well, yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching this. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know. This is the first time I made a video like this, so be gentle. So, have a nice weekend. I hope you guys can make a video like I did as well. Just how you made the track with tips and tricks, just to learn each other how we approach certain things. So, make awesome music, stay awesome. Until next time.